Hi guys, editor finally loaded. Thanks forever. We're continuing on our Navmesh setup for the map. Alamein is our example. So getting ready to load the map up. And hopefully no issues, or I'll have to re-record this. And there we are. When we pick our map, load it up. And while this is loading the map, an explanation. So we had the AI.ai file that we had to add within the folder, mind you. So AI folder, AI.ai within the map, which controls our Navmesh generator to generate Navmesh along the terrain in the way it's supposed to based on its being infantry or vehicle and apply its clusters. The other thing you need to have is a valid combat area built anti-clockwise around the map. I'm not going to go over that at the moment. This one's already got a valid combat area, so I'll briefly explain. In the level editor tool, which you see up here, you're going to want to select this guy up here if you see my cursor, and once you select it, you'll be able to right click and add a control point. And like I say, you want to go counterclockwise. You go one control point to wherever you want all the way around until you come back to where you started, and then you're going to zoom in on that point and you'll right click. So if I was to do it, you would right click here and it would give you the option to close the combat area. Once that's done, you'll look over in the tweak with it and make sure that used by pathfinding's checked. Now that shit's already done on this map, so I'm not going to worry about that at the moment to show you. So now what we want to do is we want to make sure I want to be able to see what I'm doing. Turn the fog off. And there's our ugly map. Now, make sure your single player editor is enabled. You have that, and it'll turn white. Sometimes it's easier when it's like that. Sometimes it's not. If you don't like it white, you can change it to whatever mode rendering. You should have a basic knowledge of the editor. And if your single player editor is not operating, go to Tools, Add in Manager, and make sure that it's right here, that it's on auto load loaded. Okay. So anyways, as we go forward, we got to have these flags set up so that they've got their strategic areas. So the first thing I'll do is render AI. And you won't really see anything until you've generated it. So in the single player editor, what we'll do is we'll select this place on all, and that's assuming that you've set the flags up with radiuses and all that happy stuff. So we'll select on place on selected all, and there we go. Now we've got strategic areas on each flag. But wait, there's more. So now you've got to, and it doesn't really matter which one you pick first, but you want to select overhead. So this thing's picky about picking things, right? And you can do either the order positions or the neighboring first. So we'll go through the order positions because it's really not that complicated. But so you're going to want to, with it highlighted, make sure it's highlighted in blue and carefully place order positions. Generally, you want to keep your infantry within the radius of the flag capture area, which is this circle, or the combat, or the strategic area is usually about the same limits, but you want them within the radius. So if you put it in a corner, he's going to stand there and not be able to cap the flag, so it's got to be within the radius. Now for vehicle, you want them to be right on the edge of that area, so that they're not crashing into the flag and getting stuck and being dumb. So what you do is you'll probably put one out somewhere out here, okay? So there's order positions done for that one. So then you're going to go through and do them all. And you'll want to keep in mind where you're placing them when it nav meshes, that it's in proper areas that would, it's kind of hard to explain, but you kind of want to guess where the nav mesh is going to work and where it's not. So say for vehicle, I want to make sure I'm kind of somewhere that vehicle nav mesh could probably get to, which I'm not certain it's going to get up here, but we'll try. And worst case, you'll have to move it or you'll have to modify it. But for now, this is the basics of getting it set up. So, placing my positions. If these aren't actually placed and left in their default, navgen won't work. And they have to be off flag 0, no matter what. Okay. And they look like they're faint little circles. Infantry smaller, the bigger circles vehicle. So, moving on. Find this one. Needs it. So we'll place infantry. Well, whatever, that's good enough. Vehicle. Somewhere in this neck of the woods is good. Alright. And you may have to readjust these later. Who knows? When the Navmesh is finished, you'll be able to tell better, because then once the Navmesh is down in the map, you'll see them. If they're red, they're bad. If they're green, they're good. And that's basically the rules. So, one more infantry position. We don't want them to get ran over, so we'll try to keep them on this side, and we'll put our vehicle somewhere to here. Okay, so basically every flag should have been done. Once you've gotten all your vehicle positions and infantry order positions on each flag, now it's time to neighbor them. And that's as simple as you highlight one flag, all right? And then what you want to do is try to create a neighbor to each flag. So you right click on another control area and click add two-way neighbor. Add two-way neighbor all the way through to each flag. Oh, there's our two-way neighbor. And another one. Now, if you work at a pattern, it's best for this, because if you get a double neighbor, you're going to screw it up. And it's not very forgiving. So we go, let's click the next flag, and then we're already neighbored to the last flag that we started with. So all we need to do is neighbor this one to each other flag. And there we go. And then I'll move on to the next one. So now that this one is neighbored to both of those, all I have to do is neighbor it to these other two. So, whoop. You have to get right in the box or it won't register, and sometimes you have to play with it. It's just the editor's a buggy as shit. So that one's neighbored. Now it's just this one. And that one gets neighbored here. So this flag is neighbored to 1, 2, 3, 4 flags. This one is neighbored to, and you can check your work this way, 1, 2, 3, 4 flags. This one is neighbored to 1, 2, 3, 4 flags. They should all be neighbored to every other flag. So if the total number of flags is 5, then you would be neighbored, each flag would be neighbored to 4 others. So there we go. There you have it. That was easy. So now you're going to save that. Okay. And it should automatically come up to the save. The other thing you want to do is also go to level editor and save. And if it doesn't allow it to do that, you can either do one of things, two things. You can either, if it doesn't automatically give you a save on that, it's best to go to resave and select objects and save again. Or the opposite is, or the other method you can do is just move one of these guys just a little bit. You gotta, if I can get a hold of the damn thing. Come on, you bugger. The editor's being a jerk, as usual. For some reason it's not letting me grab stuff. Oh, duh. I gotta select that. There we go. Anyway. So just wiggle one of these. And then save. And it'll do the same damn thing. Anyway. So now we're pretty much set up. So now we want to go ahead and give it a try. So to try it in our particular game, we have a couple of tools that you can use. One of which is this Navmesh Nod GUI, where you can it'll allow you to select the map and just do a full-blown Navmesh and go straight through, untouched, just fire it up and forget about it kind of thing. Or we have Dynamro's tool, which I'm going to use that. It's got more functionality, but we're going to just cover the basics. So we fire this up. It gives it a list of maps. You want to find the number of what your map is. So it'd be Alamein, wherever that might be. I think it's 119. Yep. So 119. Get to the end of the list, and then you can input 119. Press enter, and now it's set up, ready to go. So the first thing we need to do is we need to launch the editor and create our GTS data meshes. Basically, that's like a copy of every bit and piece that's in that map that needs to be nav-meshed around and whatnot. It gives the nav-mesh gen info and should work as long as his tool's working correctly. So we want to generate GTS data files. So select two. And we run that. And basically the workflow on this is once you launch it, the editor to generate the GTS data, it runs based off a script. It should be automatic. It should run and close. That's going to port things over. So in the meantime of this loading, I'll show you where it goes. Basically, if you have any trouble, your work folder is where all your nav meshes are stored. Okay. Since we've got an Alamein in there, we've got a GTS data file and meshes already existing from from today. So what one looks like that would be normal is once it's been completed and you're fully nav meshed, you're going to see all these files in here. Your actual nav mesh, the mesh itself, is in output, and it's going to be these OBJs, vehicle OBJ and infantry OBJ. This is where you can edit them and then run fix nav mesh to fix any problems. That the nav gen is never perfect. You never get anything great out of it. After it's completed, you'll see in the islands folder, you should only have one island per type. So infantry should have one island, vehicle should have one island. If you have multiple islands on a generation, such as, you had island 0, 1, and 2, then that mesh is invalid. It needs to only have one island. So we'll get to that later. But your GTS data meshes come in, and this is what they should look like when it's finished and generated. You'll see a whole bunch of crap in there. It says GTS files. And there should be a config, which this one doesn't have anymore. I don't know what happened to it, but that gives basically the instructions based on them, the AI.ai. But anyway, that's just an example of the folder structure. And if you do have any trouble, you can go to the level and check it, see if if it has generated them, but it's not in your work folder. You can manually copy them over and then run the nav mesh. But we'll see how this runs. If this runs good, then we won't need to do that. So once this generates, you'll see a GTS data folder end up in here. And what it's supposed to do is the script is supposed to copy the file over to the work folder. Forgive this video being long, but I'm too lazy to stop it and start it. So unless I get the editor going, a video editor going, I'm not going to shrink it. Sorry. Just smoke them if you got them. Shouldn't take terribly long to load. So in review, you have a level you want on Navmesh, and it's conquest only, no supporting AI files. Steal an AI folder with the AI.ai in it. After you've expanded your map ready to open up and edit in the editor, make sure that that gets added to the map's level area. And if you need to generate, which if it's a conquest only, no AI support whatsoever, you'll have to open in the editor, create your strategic area. Strategic areas on the flags like we did. Each flag's strategic area gets an infantry and vehicle order position, one of each, no more. You can't do more. But if you happen to not have the flag set and you place one, then you just placed a position that is not tied to any flag, which means you need to start over with that strategic area file and get rid of it and start over. So there isn't a lot of room margin for error with it. So there's one strategic area per flag, one order position per type per flag, and then neighbors. And the neighbors are one two-way to every other flag, if that's not too confusing. And again, never double neighbor. If you do, start over. You just foobarred it. You can delete a strategic area on a flag by just highlighting it blue and delete there, and then rebuild it. But if you've placed order positions not tied to a flag, there's no way to delete it but delete the file. Alright, so now it's supposed to be generating GTS data. If there's any problems with the map or something is wrong with an object or whatever, you're going to know it when it's in this. If you're monitoring it as it's loading, you're going to end up with a crash, or you won't end up with any files. In that case, it's kind of tough to narrow down sometimes. But if you've done your combat area and your strategic area is right, and your mod and map is decent, no problems, no bad objects and shit like that, you should be able to generate. It should have no problem doing it. Okay, so it's doing its thing. Alright, and as you can see, it just generated GTS data and meshes here in the levels, in the level itself. Now, just for sake of checking, before I continue, I'm gonna look inside my work folder, which is in here, and make sure that they are in there. In fact, GTS data 826, that's 1030, that's 1230, 1030, and it's empty. So for some reason it did not copy them over, right? In that event, which is good practice to check, is go back to that level and steal that folder. Here we are. So we want the GTS data from this, copy, and we're going to go back to Navmesh work, LLMain, and I'm going to paste that in there and overwrite or add whatever it has so it's up to date and current. And now we have everything here. Now once you have this in here, you should be good to go. So I'm going to, now on the tool, since we've done all that, we now go to create new Navmesh. For inexperienced users, we'll use 1. For experienced users, you'd use 3. And this just does the Navmesh. You do the fix. You do all the stuff. If you end up with islands, you can check them. I prefer that way, so that's what I'm going to do. Because then it allows somebody to be able to edit meshes that might be salvageable. So the other way, what it does, if you end up with islands, it will just take the largest island for each and apply it and fix and do the whole 9 yards for you. Uh, um, if you're not good at editing or not going to get into editing meshes, then option 1 is your best bet. So I'm going to do option 3 because I plan on showing how to edit meshes too. So here we go, option 3. And once you do that, it says checking infantry islands. Press enter. And it copies the GTX data at that point. This new tool I'm trying to get used to as well, so apparently it does it when you actually start meshing. And now it's running the Navmesh gen. Unless you get a crash during the generation, you just let it run. And it may, depending on the size of the map, the complexity of the map, the amount of objects in the map, the amount of trees, foliage, all that crap, it may take from who knows, a guess, like 6 hours to 3 days, depending on how big the map is. Again, this is a 32-bit program, just like the damn game, so no matter how powerful your PC is, the program can only run as fast as it can run. So, with that said, we're going to stop this, and once it's complete, then we'll start the next tutorial on how to fix it if it's screwed up. Alright? See you later.